Americans for Fair Taxation presents the Weekly Chairman's Report, written by Steve Hayes, president of Americans for Fair Taxation, and recorded by Bob Paxton, a volunteer with the Florida FAIRtax Educational Association. And now, this week's Chairman's Report.
Hello, I'm Bob Paxton with the AFFT Chairman's Report for Friday, August 19th, 2022. The McCabe Comey IRS Audits. In 2021, the confidential tax returns of thousands of wealthy taxpayers were leaked and made available to the public by ProPublica.org. While there was some public outcry over this, many of the more liberal pundits and liberal media outlets actually applauded the leak. They ignored the fact that the leaker broke the law and instead concentrated on how the leaked information proved the liberal narrative that the wealthy aren't paying their fair share of federal taxes. However, those same liberal pundits and liberal media outlets are absolutely outraged that James Comey and Andrew McCabe, two of their own, were subjected to a program audit, the most invasive type of audit conducted by the IRS. Some have likened it to an autopsy without the benefit of death. Now, there are four types of IRS audits. They are correspondence audits, where the IRS sends you a letter often stating that you failed to report income shown on a 1099 and that you owe additional tax. There are office audits, where the taxpayer brings their records into an IRS office. There are field audits, where the IRS agent comes to your business and demands to see your records. And then there are program audits, where the IRS agent audits every line item on your tax return and demands proof to substantiate each line item. An article in the Dallas Morning News made the following points. The odds of matching 6 numbers in the Texas Powerball lottery are 1 in 25 million. That's 3 times better than the odds that 2 former FBI directors, deemed traitors by then-President Donald Trump, were picked just at random for an unusually intensive IRS audit known as a compliance research examination. Now, Trump fired Comey as FBI director in May 2017 after he refused to promise loyalty or to pull the plug on an investigation into Russian meddling in the 2016 election. McCabe, his deputy, took over as acting FBI director. He was fired the following March. Now, out of 153 million individual income tax returns filed in 2017, 5,000 were subjected to a program audit. James Comey was one of those 5,000. There were 8,000 such audits in 2019, one of which was McCabe. Now, IRS Commissioner Charles Rettig, a Trump appointee, has denied that he was ever asked by President Trump or anyone else to audit anyone. Mr. Rettig has asked the IRS Inspector General to investigate. Now, one of the reasons that Americans have tolerated disclosing the intimate details of their personal finances to the government is that the government has promised that that information that we submit on our tax returns is strictly confidential. We all assume that the only way our personal income information will be seen by others is if we publish it ourselves. It's become routine for political candidates to release their tax returns to the public, and that's fine when they're doing it on their own free will. Now, we all know that the IRS conducts random audits. These audits aren't pleasant, but they're a necessary tool in fighting illegal tax evasion, which costs the government over $1 trillion a year. But just what are these outraged people missing? Commentators who are either bemoaning or applauding leaks of confidential tax data and using the IRS as a weapon against political opponents are missing the basic fundamental question that needs to be asked in all of these situations. Why do we need the income tax in the IRS in the first place? The income payroll tax system has too many defects to name them all, and there's a fair and simple replacement, the FAIRtax. When we replace the income payroll tax system with the FAIRtax, leaking anyone's tax return data becomes impossible because there are no more tax returns to leak. Having to undergo a politically motivated IRS audit also becomes impossible since the IRS itself will be abolished under the FAIRtax. In conclusion, we all know that the ruling elite and their minions in D.C. are fighting hard to keep the current and incomprehensible income tax system. That's because it gives them 2 things they crave: money and power. Lobbyists and special interests seeking favorable income tax treatment contribute billions of dollars to politicians to fund their campaigns. In addition, these same politicians use the income tax system to control many of our decisions. By offering tax breaks for certain behaviors and tax penalties for others, they try to influence everything from what kind of car we drive to what kind of light bulbs we buy. As long as tax returns exist, it's inevitable that there will be politically motivated advocates within the IRS who believe that a greater good is served by leaking certain confidential tax information. And as long as the IRS remains in business, politicians on both sides of the aisle will be tempted to use random audits as a way to make life miserable for their political opponents. The only way to eliminate these abuses is to get rid of tax returns and put the IRS out of business by replacing the income tax with the fair tax. It's time for all Americans to demand that Congress quit wringing their hands about IRS abuses. The fair tax will eliminate the Internal Revenue Service. It also eliminates tax returns that can be leaked, eliminates the ruling elite's ability to favor one group of taxpayers over another. It also eliminates the confusion about the true cost of government because it shows us the cost on every retail receipt. And finally, it eliminates one major tool that the ruling elites and their minions use to control us. The fair tax will allow Americans to take back control over their government and their lives. The income payroll tax system is broken. It's no longer working. We can't repair it, but we can replace it with the fair tax. And all Americans must join us before it's too late and the wonderful country we all love is further harmed. Join us and take back control of our country, not with bullets, but with the elimination of one of the biggest threats to our liberty and economic prosperity, the income payroll tax. We should all remember Edmund Burke's warning that applies to our efforts to take back control. Nobody made a greater mistake than he who did nothing because he could only do a little. We should also remember this quote from George Orwell's 1984, which, if we do nothing, may foretell your and your children's future. If you want a picture of the future, imagine a boot stamping on a human face forever. So what can each of us do? We can write letters and make calls to our elected representatives and attend Zoom town hall meetings demanding that if they really want to allow Americans to take back control, the first step is to eliminate the income payroll tax system and enact the fair tax. Take back control. Help us pass the fair tax. The IRS will be gone and will pay our taxes when we make purchases. We, not the ruling class and their minions in D.C., will decide how much federal tax we pay. And we'll all know how much tax we're paying because taxes will no longer be hidden from us. They'll be clearly shown on every retail receipt. If you have friends who don't know about the fair tax, send them to fairtax.org. Have them watch the whiteboards under how it works, and if they agree, ask them to please join us. Then, contact your members of Congress and the President and demand that Congress pass the fair tax, the only truly fair tax.
This has been the Weekly Chairman's Report, written by Steve Hayes, President of Americans for Fair Taxation. Check back every week for news and information about the fair tax, and learn why the fair tax should replace our antiquated federal income tax system. If you'd like to receive a copy of the Chairman's Report in your inbox every week, sign up at fairtax.org.